It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today.
Welcome back to Reality Check. We are your hosts, Jess and Jill. And today I'm sure will be a very hot topic because it's 2025 and this is just all the rage right now. And we wanted to cover, is it my hormones? And I feel like a lot of women are convinced their hormones are the reason they can't lose weight, the reason they feel exhausted, the reason they're bloated all the time. So we want to dive into, is that really the case? And what does that look like? And how to tell if your hormones are actually the issue and maybe when they're not. The biggest mistakes that women make when they assume their hormones are to blame, why focusing on behavior and lifestyle matters so much more than lab testing or anything else, what to do before you spend thousands on functional testing, supplements, protocols, and then ultimately the exact strategies that we use with our clients to optimize hormones, body composition, lifestyle, behaviors, everything, and kind of put all the puzzle pieces together in the right place at the right time. But I'm definitely not saying that you're wrong if you feel like you have something hormonal going on that's contributing to symptoms that maybe you don't want to deal with on a daily basis. But typically hormone imbalances aren't random. You didn't just wake up one day with hypothyroid, right? There's probably a reason that change happened ultimately. Usually hormone imbalances, which is a very broad terminology to use, but they're usually an adaptation to stress, to lifestyle, to gut dysfunction, to anything, metabolic imbalances. So ultimately what we do in our approach that I am very confident in and proud of is that we fix your inputs that maybe led to that in the first place. Because at the end of the day, no supplement, no medication, nothing is going to offset if you continue with the inputs that got you there in the first place, right? We're just spinning our wheels. And I don't love that terminology, but we want to fix the inputs and then hormones will often correct themselves after that. So we want to dig into hormone blame game ultimately.
And a lot of times I think people are looking for a reason because it sucks to have these symptoms, right? I think it's valid that we're like, oh, but I just want to see so I can get an answer, right? At the end of the day, though, even with like genetic conditions or genetic predispositions, the way that our genes turn on, it's like a light switch you can turn on and off. So when we add compounded stressors over time, they can turn these switches on. So when people say like, I have Hashimoto's, I have thyroid, that's a thyroid thing, or I have this autoimmune inflammatory type response or whatever.
PCOS,
that switch has been turned on for you. We can now it's not like some of these things are just going to go away forever for the rest of your life. We might need to strategize and change some things in your diet or whatever. Maybe we do need to add supplementation along with it. But at the end of the day, just because you have this thing that is an answer doesn't mean that, okay, now you're destined to just have to have it for the rest of your life, or you have to deal with the symptoms for the rest of your life. You can turn that switch back off for some things, and for other things, you can make the symptoms way less severe through some different lifestyle changes.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to be the first one to say I cannot cure anything. I am not a doctor. I am not giving medical advice. Go talk to your doctor. But there are a lot of things that can be very easily manipulated in a favorable way in terms of lifestyle changes, right? And like Jeff said, there are some conditions and some things that are just not within your control. And obviously they're managed with medication or whatever it is that your body needs, right, to fill that gap. But I'm talking specifically about the woman that comes to me saying, I'm exhausted and I know my hormones are off, but I got labs done and everything always comes back normal, right? So we want to dive into like, what does that really look like? And, I wrote something down about the explosion of hormone-related content and functional health trends right now. It's a blessing and a curse, right? I think it's so great that we're talking about more than just the scale going down these days, because that's all it was for a long time. And there wasn't a lot of awareness around this topic, which is the beauty of social media and the internet, right? But it also comes with a lot of women self-diagnosing from a couple of TikToks, right? And it's like, we have to get a clear picture here. And I think we're always looking, like Jess said, for an answer or a justification. And I get it. Like, I've been in that place where I'm like, I just want to know what's wrong and why so I can fix it. And that's fine, right? We want awareness around whatever the problem is. But a lot of times we're not taking it a step further beyond that problem awareness, and we're not actually making the change that's necessary to fix and prevent the problem in the future, ultimately.
So this kind of like leads into what does our initial protocol look like with clients, whether they suspect hormone or underlying gut issues or whatever, or not. Our starting protocol is very similar. Now, obviously, it's tailored and individual to each person. I'm not saying this person needs to get the same amount of steps as this other person, right? We're looking at your whole lifestyle. But generally speaking, we are adding resistance training. We are dialing back stress and excessive high intensity exercise. We are adding protein and we are adding calories. That is always our step one, is a muscle building phase with a focus on, are we improving energy? Is our libido getting better? Is our digestion getting better? All of these are signs that likely your hormones are going to start regulating in an optimal way just from doing these things. So we tend to start there. Now, obviously, we can order functional labs. So if somebody is like, I just want to pay for them because I want to see a baseline, cool. But it's a lot of money out of pocket. So you certainly don't have to. We do not recommend it. Usually we say, okay, do this protocol the way that I'm suggesting. And if after 3 or 4 months, we don't start to see symptoms improve, then let's talk testing, because 90% of the time they do improve. And it's not just symptoms I'm talking about, it's health outcomes. I have graphs that women have sent me like, oh my gosh, look at my blood work from 6 months ago when we started working together to now. My blood glucose has improved by this many, like significant markers. There's one client coming to mind who graduated from working with us. She's now maintaining and eating intuitively. She absolutely was a physique only. She hired us because she wanted to change her physique. She did not hire us for health stuff. And within her first 6 months, we had not gone into a deficit or anything. We were adding muscle. Her doctor took her off of her blood pressure medicine and lowered her dose of, or maybe took her off of her thyroid medicine and lowered her dose of her blood pressure medicine in her first 6 months of us working together. So it was impacting her hormone health in a positive way without us having to run testing, right? So I say this to say, when you are hiring somebody, I think that there are a lot of like functional practitioners and naturopaths out there who kind of just, they know the protocols to run, right? They're doing these elimination diets, they're adding supplements, but they're not focused on these basic things, which, okay, maybe it fixes your symptoms short term, but these things need to be implemented either way. So at the end of the day, you almost need to get good with the fact that like, shoot, okay, something's going to have to give. I'm going to have to change something in my inputs. We choose to start there before then going the whole supplement testing route.
And that's not to say you can't get testing from the start, right? So I'm a very data driven person, and I'm like, I'm willing to make that investment, right? But the point of what Jess just said is that that is jumping to like 5 steps ahead with paying, because it's not cheap, right? It's typically not covered by insurance. So we're like, hey, we can fix a lot of this without having you make that huge investment in the testing. And then if we get to that point where we're scratching our heads like, man, something's still not right, then we do that. But our foundational protocol addresses a very large majority of the problems that you present, whether it's, like Jess said, hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, PCOS, menopause, whatever the case is. We're typically addressing those things anyway with just the way that we approach nutrition, food, lifestyle training, all of that. So you have to work with the right person, right? And obviously, I don't expect anyone to guess what those changes are, right? Like we are doing a lot of auditing still at the end of the day of your symptoms, of your inputs, of your day-to-day life, and then building the protocol based on how your body's responding, right? That week over week biofeedback. But I think that a lot of, and this is like a new thing that women are coming to us saying like, well, I worked with functional, I did this, and it didn't work. Well, if a provider ran a bunch of tests and gave you information and answers, cool, but that's just information, expensive information at the end of the day. You have to know what to do with it. And again, if you're just paying for a bunch of testing and then paying for a bunch of supplements, but you're still eating 1,200 calories, your thyroid is not going to improve, right? Or whatever the case is. That's just an example. But ultimately, you still have to fix your inputs that led you down that road in the first place. And that's why we take the approach that we do. And so many women are like, but I want to test. And I'm like,
that's okay. Right? But yeah, I think it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, these conversations with clients, because they're like, well, I just need to fix this. I just want answers. And it's like, okay, well, then I'll run them through the options of, okay, if you get these tests and this is what we find, our starting protocol is going to be more restrictive than this basic stuff we're doing right now. And we're having a tough time doing these basic health inputs now. Is this something you actually are willing to commit to from a protocol standpoint? And a lot of times the answer is no. I'm not really ready to do a super anti-inflammatory protocol with a 2-week flush where we do all this. Like, it's a very intensive thing for a specific outcome. But I respect that, first of all. If you are not in a place where you're going to commit to it and be able to do it, be honest with yourself. But then it's like, well, I don't want to do that protocol. So I'm going to go try and see if I can find answers somewhere else where somebody will just give me supplements. And it's like, you're not fixing the root cause then. Like, and again, you might alleviate your symptoms for a few months, but then you're probably going to end up with the same issues a year from now. So like, at the end of the day, you need to be okay with some of the really tough protocol type changes if you do decide to go that route. Okay, so when I guess we said it's not always that simple. Like when we think hormones are the problem, but maybe they're not. Again, a lot of times hormones, there probably is some sort of underlying hormonal imbalance. A lot of times, I don't think women realize the amount of hormonal taxation that takes place when we are chronically dieting and over-exercising. So your food, I love this analogy. Jill uses this a lot. Our food is like currency. And let's say we're only getting so much on our paycheck every month. Like, we need to use that paycheck first to keep the lights on in the house and to pay our bills and to feed ourselves. We can't be spending that extra money on the fun stuff. The same thing happens with our calories, right? So us being in a diet, even if you're like, no, I'm chill, I don't feel stressed. Being in a chronic diet is a stressor on your body. You are only getting so much income to spend on keeping these functions alive. And your body's going to put those resources towards the necessities first. So your heart pumping, your brain working, all of these things are happening. We don't have extra money to spend on reproductive organs and things like that, right? We're keeping the lights on and we're surviving in that way. We're not necessarily thriving and reproducing, which is why oftentimes we see issues around menstrual cycles or things like that start to happen when you're in a chronically dieted state. The same thing starts to happen if you are chronically dieted and over-exercising without true recovery. So those two things are very easy to manipulate, which is why oftentimes we start with, okay, we're adding calories. This is a very basic thing, but it's going to give your body the resources it needs to start to thrive again metabolically.
Yeah, absolutely. So overtraining, the combination of overtraining and undereating is the most common thing that we see, right? And then you throw in just normal life stressors and food quality. And, another thing that's going around too is like cortisol. Cortisol, it's in and of itself is a hormone. The stress hormone is a very hot topic, and everyone is self-diagnosed with high cortisol. And it's important to differentiate that. Yes, life and being an adult comes with stressors that are out of our control. We can't all quit our jobs and leave our kids on someone's front porch and sing Kumbaya for 2 hours every morning. That would be great, but it's not realistic, right? So then we start to look at, well, I need this supplement, or I can't train because I have high cortisol, my body's stressed. And then it's like, no, you're removing the wrong stressors, right? You're coming at this from the totally wrong angle. And no, you can't quit your job. No, you can't, make your kids stop doing that thing that's annoying, but you can control your food quality. You can control not under eating. You can control getting off your
staring
phone.
at your cell phone until 11 or binge watching TV. Like, a lot of women are like, yeah, I have downtime. I kind of
watch Netflix.
Relax. I scroll my phone, I watch Netflix, and it's like, oh, I hate to break this to you, but that's a stimulation to our brain that's coming in through our eyes. That's a stressor. Even though you're like, no, I feel relaxed in that moment. That actually, screen time is a stressor in itself. Us jacking up our circadian rhythm by staying up too late because we have all these lights in our face at all hours of the day. The stress of what we read on social media, all these things are stressors that pile up. We can remove the ones we can control, or we can add recovery modalities. So what we do in our program is try to do both as much as we possibly can in the areas we can control for each individual, because everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the common symptoms that we hear are, weight gain with what feels like no diet or lifestyle changes, extreme fatigue despite getting, air quotes, enough sleep, irregular cycles, hair thinning, skin issues, bloating that doesn't resolve, cravings, feeling puffy, symptoms of high and low cortisol, right? So we see all of those. And it's important to know that, hypothyroid or constant bloating isn't a root cause. It's like, what are we doing? What is our input that is yielding this negative response
outcome.
from our body
Yeah.
that we don't want, right? And that's what's important to understand, is that it's typically caused by long-term stress, under eating, gut health, lifestyle habits that aren't serving the positive, bigger purpose. And, you know, when it comes to the testing in and of itself, I think a lot of women are dismissed, you know. It's actually very strange, and I'm not sure I fully understand it, but I have a lot of women that come to me and say, well, I asked my doctor to test my hormones and they said there's no point because I'm on birth control. I'm like, okay, but there's so much more than just sex hormones to test. Like, it's very weird. So I hear that. I hear you're menopausal, there's no point in testing. I hear you got tests, but they were very basic, but everything looks, air quotes, normal. And I talk about this a lot in my content, but normal lab ranges are very large. They're based on general population. They're always changing and evolving. And general population is typically overweight, overstressed, tired, not very
healthy, obese.
right? It's not optimal. And there's optimal and normal are so different. And that's a functional approach. And honestly, why I had to career change, because I was like, I can't be on this side of medicine anymore, because it's so reactive. And it's not reactive, and even in a productive way, it's reactive, like, oh, put a Band-Aid on that symptom. Oh, put a Band-Aid on that symptom. Oh, well, you have a side effect of this medication, so now take this medication. And now you're on 10 medications for one problem and you still didn't fix the root cause, right? So that's what we mean when we're saying we want to change your behaviors and your lifestyle so that you actually feel good as a human. And I think we normalize being exhausted and being stressed and being irritable, and those things aren't normal. They're very common, right? Because not a lot of people are truly healthy and feel good, but that does not have to be your end all be all. And that is really like the reason that I do what I do, is that I want you to feel good in your body and lean and strong and whatever, but I want you to actually function and be healthy and live a long, healthy life with your kids and your grandkids and like whatever it is that is your motivation ultimately. But I understand that it's frustrating because I've lived that myself too.
Yeah. And when we're looking at the tests, you just mentioned that like sex hormones aren't the end all be all. We do really comprehensive blood work analysis. And if we can have a client do it through their primary care doctor, great. If you can get it through insurance, we always recommend that first. We don't make extra money on our coaching through testing. It is just out of pocket for whatever that test costs. But we are looking at a full scope of things. We are looking at a full thyroid panel, not just TSH. We are looking at iron and ferritin, right? We're not just looking at serum iron.
Inflammatory markers, yeah.
We're looking at inflammatory markers. We're looking at specific antibodies. And the reason we do this is because we're seeing if we see any trends. Then the trends can lead us to, okay, what test might be appropriate next? So I'll use myself as an example. Some of my numbers are off and were off. I really did a great protocol and I'm feeling good. My numbers were off, brain fog, anxiety, things that don't look right. When we do my blood test, it says like, a lot of different things were leaning towards like gut permeability issues in terms of trends. So then I go and I order now a stool sample, a gut test, so that they can look at my gut microbiome, right? So now I find out, okay, you have a really severe H. pylori overgrowth. Now let's do this protocol for that specific thing. I can take a supplement and do the same protocol we just talked about to wipe out that thing and repopulate my good gut bacteria. And wow, now my body's absorbing nutrients properly, right? Another example is like, somebody might have high estrogen, but it could be for a lot of different reasons. It doesn't mean they just need to go run and take an estrogen lowering supplement. Maybe their liver isn't detoxing things properly, or maybe they have a gut dysbiosis issue, right? There's lots of different reasons in terms of the root cause. And then these hormone changes or thyroid changes or whatever are trickle down effects of whatever that root cause is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I want to talk too about like the biggest mistakes women make when they think it's their hormones that's a problem, which again, we're not saying it's not, we're just saying it's probably not the root cause. But one is, I think, confusing weight with health and hormone health, right? So a lot of women come to me and say, I have all these hormone problems and I can't lose weight, but I want to lose weight now. And I'm eating 1,400 calories and nothing's happening. It's like, hold on. It's like trying to go to California and Philadelphia at the same time. You can't, right? Like you have to heal your hormones.
You can't prioritize them both.
The fuel that it needs. And now I'm not saying that like, it's definitely possible that when you give your body the nutrients it needs and you do regulate any hormone or gut imbalances, your physique will likely improve through that, right? You won't feel as inflamed. You won't feel as bloated or as bloated. You might see better body composition changes from your efforts in the gym, right? Because you're actually giving your body the calories it needs, right? So just seeing the scale go down and fixing your hormones cannot happen at the same time.
And it doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that you can't do one or the other either. Like, just because somebody's hormones are messed up doesn't mean that they can't lose weight. They might have a harder time. If somebody has PCOS or hypothyroid or whatever, they may have to cut to a lower, steeper calorie amount than somebody who doesn't have those things going on to get into a caloric deficit. But it doesn't mean, oh, I can't lose weight because I have a thyroid problem, right? So that doesn't make it impossible. But if we put you into a caloric deficit, it's creating a bigger stressor on your body. So we know ultimately that's actually going to cause more hormonal issues down the line. So we're always trying to kind of shift our clients' eyes back to the health picture, because if we can fix the health picture, then physique change and weight loss becomes so much easier.
Absolutely. So if you're coming to me and saying, I can't lose weight because I have hypothyroid, but you're cutting your calories lower and lower and increasing your cardio or your workouts or whatever in the name of seeing the scale go down, or just prioritizing the scale number over everything else, when you have those deeper concerns to be addressed, you're going to find yourself in just an endless wheel, and then hormones are going to get worse. You're going to get more frustrated. Weight loss is going to feel even harder. So why put yourself in that situation when you can just pause on focusing on the scale and being in a calorie deficit, address all of these underlying issues? Weight loss is going to feel so much easier later. And again, like Jess said, it doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. Maybe there is something you're managing, but now you know exactly what your body needs ultimately at that point. And then I think we already talked about this, but the other mistake is jumping just straight to testing supplements before actually addressing nutrition and stress and recovery and just a balance of everything. And again, you can test right away. There's nothing wrong or bad about it. It's just, don't pay for expensive information. Know what to do with that information, or work with somebody that knows what to do with that information.
Or be ready to make the changes that are required. Like right now, I can imagine my labs are not wonderful because my sleep has not been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Am I actually ready to change that habit? Right? Because that's the thing that is probably my most important thing that will improve my stuff. I'm not going to waste money on something if I'm not ready to make those lifestyle changes too.
Mm-hmm. And then just assuming that like there's a supplement, right? Like I mentioned, high cortisol. There's not just a supplement you take that lowers your cortisol and everything is hunky dory after that. When you're not sleeping enough, like Jess said, or your food quality sucks, or you've been in a calorie deficit forever, those are still major stressors that you're just wasting your money on the supplement, right? You're not fixing the problem. You're just trying to override it.
And depending on what continue. I think we might touch on this in our next step. So kind of like what to focus on before running labs or before buying supplements.
So most women don't need a test, like we said, to see what's wrong, right? Like we can gauge your diet history, your inputs, your symptoms, and put that together. We probably can figure out, even without a lab, not everything, but we can figure out a lot of things that we can address just with our base protocol and the changes that we help support you.
And our next bullet point will be when lab testing might be for you, just so you know. Don't turn off the podcast right now.
We'll still let you test, I promise. But ultimately, eating enough food is always going to be step one for every woman that comes to us, is ensuring that they are actually giving their body the energy requirements that it needs to survive and thrive and regulate and all of those things. Your metabolism, your hormones, your gut, none of that will heal in a deficit. I've even seen women who maybe their food quality isn't awful, but they're eating 1,400 calories for an extended period of time and they don't know why they're bloated all the time. Well, your body literally doesn't have enough energy resources to effectively digest the food you're consuming, right? That in and of itself can be a stressor that causes bloating and whatever gut dysfunction. So eating enough food is always going to be step one.
Managing stress and not overtraining, and also add the recovery modalities. If yoga or breath work or guided meditation or tapping sounds boring to you, you probably need it, or it would probably benefit your body more than you think. Prioritizing quality sleep. Sleep is our number one recovery modality. Like sleep is the thing. That's when that's when our body produces all these good things and heals from a cellular level. So that is a huge, huge, huge one. And I know I'm going to say this now because especially women who are like perimenopausal and menopausal, that can be a struggle, right? Like, so I think when you start to get into those years that your hormones do start to shift, now sleep is compromised and then it becomes this vicious cycle. But I tell my clients, like, treat your sleep like it's gold. Like, what are the things within your control that we can do? And again, on an individual basis, maybe we can talk supplement support or this or that, but treat your sleep like it's gold. Reduce caffeine to help your sleep. Reduce screen time before bed to help your sleep. Go outside and see sunshine during daytime and morning hours to help regulate your natural melatonin production. We want to do all these things because sleep is where it's at from a health standpoint.
Yeah, wildly underrated. And then the other thing is supporting your gut health, which this is kind of fits in multiple categories, I guess, but you can support your gut health from a very general standpoint, and again, through our protocols. But if you do have gut dysbiosis that has maybe progressed to something like a candida overgrowth or SIBO, testing might be required. And again, there are indicators, right? There are certain symptoms that are correlated with SIBO that I can pretty much say, even without a test, like we probably should take this approach, or we probably should take this approach. But if there is a gut issue, that is something that's beneficial to test early on in a lot of cases. And then you can tailor protocols a lot more specifically to that. But again, our base protocol is still going to typically, if implemented correctly, address a lot of the symptoms, concerns, side effects, things that you are dealing with.
And when we're doing a gut protocol, it's not just an elimination diet. It is a gut diversity blast. How much nutrients can we pack into your diet and diversify it? Again, if it's a specific thing like SIBO, maybe we have to remove certain foods until you're not reactive anymore. But for most of these protocols, it's like as many freaking fruits and vegetables as you can fit in your face, all the different colors of whole foods, things like that. So if you suspect some sort of gut issue off the bat or some sort of hormonal issue, a lot of times hormonal issues originate in the gut, start to diversify your whole food intake and see what happens. Start to eat different fermented vegetables, different types of things that have probiotics and prebiotics in them and resistant starches. And a lot of times, again, now your gut's starting to heal itself before even having any testing. And then another thing, this is like the opposite. So stuff to add, lots of plant and vegetable diversity. Stuff to remove. Your liver is your hormone processor, and you're not going to process and absorb stuff if it is congested and can't get rid of the bad stuff. So if we're consuming alcohol regularly, if we're always on antibiotics and steroids and ibuprofen even, if we are overloading our body with toxic food stuff or inflammatory food stuff, like just constantly eating processed foods and sugars, those types of things are not going to allow you to detox properly so that your body can heal and thrive. So we always talk balance. Like for most of our clients, again, in our starting protocol, we're never saying like, oh, you can't have an alcoholic beverage or you can't have a sweet, or it's nothing like that. But if we have answers and we know that there's something that's a tangible underlying thing, for at least 30 days, we're probably cutting all of those things so that your body can heal itself from the inside out, like added sugar, alcohol, gluten. Again, we're not cutting that for most of the population, but if you have an underlying thing, like those are overloads that your body, those are stressors that we can control.
Right. And it's drastically speeding up the healing process, right? Because you can add all these nutrients and stuff like Jess said, but if we're not pulling the biggest stressors, it's going to just take a longer time to heal, right? Why not just like, let's pull everything out, pull all the stressors, add in all the healing stuff that we can, knock it out as quick as we can. And then we pull back a little bit and gradually reintroduce and live life, right? So that's not the end all be all. Don't go run and eliminate gluten and all of these things, right? Because
it's not forever. It's with the intention to add things back in, and then your gut and your body is processing them well, right? So same if you have some sort of diagnosed overgrowth or parasite or something, you can take supplements or antibiotics to kill that thing. But then what's left in your gut, right? Now we're killing probably also good bacteria that we need to restore, and we need to now reheal the gut lining. And then after all of that, when you start to reintroduce the onions or the garlic or the beans or whatever you were reactive to, usually your body then can process them better. And you're like, wow, I thought I couldn't have this food. And it wasn't a sensitivity necessarily to the food itself. It was triggered, that light switch was turned on from all these stress overloads over the course of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So when is lab testing helpful and what do you do with it? So if women who are already optimizing the fundamentals or at least effectively working on them, but still struggle with any symptoms, side effects, things that are lingering, or women who are willing to actually make lifestyle changes depending on what their results come back with, or if you're just financially in a place that you want to make that investment up front or at any point, right? So those are probably the biggest categories, right, of people who should invest in testing. And then if there's like a history of things that you really want to rule out, or you have hypothyroid from the past or whatever, and you want to follow up on it, or if there are just cases of like extreme fatigue, weight loss resistance, severe, I almost didn't want to say those words. True weight loss resistance is not actually that common. I want to be very clear. I know you feel like
I can name like 5. I feel like in our whole client roster, amongst all 7 of our coaches, I can name like 5 clients out of like 100.
Hundreds and hundreds of clients, right?
I can name 5 people who genuinely I'm like, oh, come on, how can we overcome this? Okay. So I just want to put that out there statistically, like
I know
very
everyone
small
feels
example.
like they're the anomaly. They're the ones that are broken, but I want to be clear
Most
that
people are just doing the wrong things.
yes. Yeah. And actually I just told a woman this like yesterday. She just signed up earlier today, but I told her I never want to discount what someone's feeling, because your fatigue, your bloating can be debilitating and affect your day-to-day function, right? And I never want to discount that, but I tell everyone that I'm not blinking at that, right? Everything you're sharing with me is addressed in my base protocol. I don't even need a lab to address the problems that you're sharing in my DMs a lot of times right now, right? So I'm not discounting that it's very negatively impacting your life, but I address that all day, every day, right?
We're positively saying we feel really confident that actually we can fix like 90% of it just with our basics. I joke about this all the time, saying like, oh my gosh, we just are helping women all over get pregnant, because we have so many women. Like, we are not hormonal experts. We are not fertility specialists. We have so many clients who tell us, I have struggled getting pregnant for years, and within their first 6 months coaching, they get pregnant naturally. And it's like incredible, but it's really because, okay, cool. We're just adding food. You're not as stressed out. We've taken away all this high intensity stuff. So yeah, it's not that you're not blinking an eye because you don't think that we need to address it. It's because we're like, okay, we can fix a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So labs that are worth it. So actual comprehensive blood panels. So not just the basics, like Jess said, like full thyroid panel, not just TSH or TSH and total T4, looking at, glucose, insulin, a full CBC, a full lipid panel, looking at inflammatory markers. So we go a lot more in depth than probably what you would get at your like annual GP physical. Dutch test is great for cortisol and sex hormones. We do a couple of different gut tests that are super beneficial, that are looking at, all of your gut, your whole gut microbiome, but looking for dysbiosis, for inflammation, for looking at short chain fatty acids, right? Like there's so many different components, the integrity of your gut lining to make sure everything is strong and digesting effectively. So there are, ZRT test is just a saliva cortisol test. So there's a lot of options. And we really build that out based on whatever a client is presenting to us, their budget, where we're at in the process, right? Are we following up on
what we see on their comprehensive labs first, right? Like, obviously if somebody has severe bloating in their and bowel movement issues and stuff, okay, most likely we're going to say a gut test. But if you're not sure and you just feel really off, we would probably run this full comprehensive panel first. And then that's going to give us trends and information. So we can say, okay, this test might be most appropriate for you.
Absolutely. And then ultimately, I think it's important to know too that fixing, I'm putting in air quotes fixing because I don't like the term fixing necessarily, but fixing, balancing, regulating, whatever you want to call it, your hormones is not an overnight thing, right? Especially with like gut specifically, that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months sometimes, which I know is like a tough blow, right? But it can take 3 to 6 months for things to regulate, for your lining to be healthy and strong and intact. And it takes time, which is why we do have these more specific protocols to try to speed that up as much as we can. But I think it's important to know that your body's not just gonna, you've been giving it these negative inputs for months, years, whatever the case. I'm happy that you're making changes, but it does take time for your body to respond, to recover, feel safe, all of those things. So it doesn't happen overnight. It is a longer process, but you cannot out supplement unhealthy habits, unhealthy routines, not eating enough, not managing your stress, not sleeping. None of that matters. Those things matter so much more than just a supplement or a protocol, because that's not going to fix the issue if you're not fixing those foundational things versus jumping to just very extreme interventions right from the jump, but you don't even know how much protein you eat in a day. I'll keep going. Sorry.
Good. I feel like that's good. I guess I was about to go off on a tangent and I'm like, I don't know if they need to hear this today, but also I feel like my perception has changed quite a bit when it comes to medical interventions in a positive way of we need to use all the tools we have too, guys. Like we have menopausal women who feel so much better when they then get on HRT, right? So we run their labs and stuff. And then we have a practitioner we work with we have a nurse practitioner who then can prescribe them progesterone or testosterone or whatever the things are. So again, we're not anti using all the tools that are available. We're anti skipping the basics for a quick fix.
Absolutely. Love that. So, okay. Ultimately, if you're going to test, have a plan, know what you're going to implement, right? I'll have people that DM me and they're like, can I order a Dutch test for you? And I'm like, if you're my client, I'm not just going to order it. Other providers might do that, right? I'm not knocking the way anybody else does things. I'm not comfortable doing that because I'm not just going to give you this information, charge you money for it, and then you have no idea.
You don't know what to do with
that
it.
information.
Yeah.
So I only do that for our one-on-one clients so that we have a plan and we can support you through it. But we don't just treat lab results, which is the other part of that. We treat the person. So if I see something on your test, but you're not really reflecting symptoms of that, like, yeah, it's on my radar, but it's not going to be my priority just because a number is not where it needs to be. That might be what's more optimal for you, right? To have a little bit lower testosterone or a little bit higher cholesterol or whatever the case is. So I'm looking at the whole person. So I need to be working with you directly so that I can see what are your symptoms? How does it correlate with these results that we're getting, where you're at in your life, what you can realistically execute in terms of protocols and
like long-term behavioral inputs over time, right? We have a lot of people who come to us saying like, yeah, I eat so healthy, I exercise great. And then we look at their actual inputs and we cringe because it's not necessarily what we would call healthy inputs, right? Because they're super under eating or because they're, So doing the right things the right way and us being able to monitor that, we can then make small shifts over time, or we can implement a more rigorous protocol if necessary, usually as a plan B.
Yeah. So if weight loss feels impossible, if you feel like you've had these symptoms just forever, if you have had experiences where you've been told your labs are normal, but you just don't feel good or you feel like something's off, anything along those lines, you know your body best. Listen to your body, but you need to work with a provider that is going to help you address the actual root cause. Like, even if you get the answer on the test, that's still not the lab marker itself is not the root cause, right? What created that imbalance in the first place? We need to address that. So hopefully you're gathering from this episode and from other episodes, if you've listened to them, that no matter what, whether you have hormone imbalances, no matter who you work with, no matter what your diet history is, what your goal is, whether you use GLP-1 or not, you have to make foundational lifestyle changes. There is absolutely no way around the fact that you need to have lots of nutrients in your diet, that you need to eat enough protein, that you need to eat enough fiber, that you have to manage your stress and get enough sleep. It's not about being perfect. It's just about what life looks like most of the time for you and what those inputs look like. And if you're not happy or you don't feel good, you got to reflect a little bit and say, what do my inputs look like? And what is causing this result that I don't want? So hopefully that was helpful. We're not saying don't test. We're just saying know how to test effectively and how to use that information to get yourself to a place that you feel good. So you're not just spending money and not getting any better. So that is all for Is It Your Hormones? And we'll see you guys next time.